Hello and welcome back to my channel where I talk about my adventures in fiction. I am super excited to finally share with you all part 2 of my flip through of my reading journal for 2024. It is super fun to finally see it in its completed form, looking back at my entire reading year and just to see how far I've come. If you haven't seen my first video, I highly recommend you go check that out. I will link it up above or in the description box below where you can see how I set up my 2024 reading journal. But in that video, I shared with you all that this was my very first time doing a reading journal, and I just got back into reading basically in December of 2023. So I went from reading about like 1 to 3 books maybe a year to last year I was able to read a total of 22 books. So that was a huge improvement for me, and my reading journal truly helped me achieve that number. So I'm really proud of myself. I'm also really proud of how much I have filled this journal. It is just crazy to think that I've practically used every single page in this journal to document my reading for the whole year. And so it is just super fun to kind of see all of it together, compiled at once, and to see how far I've come. And of course, being able to share this with you, all the books that I really enjoyed reading and doing book spreads. It was super fun to do it, and so I'm really excited to share that with you all. To start off with, I will say that I like to actually call this my book journal because I like to decorate my book journal more about the books that I read rather than my actual reading. So like a lot of people will do pages on like all of the books that they read an entire month and track more of like their reading, how many books they've read, and they'll also like write reviews in their journal of the books. So instead of doing that, I actually like to do a little bit of what I've done in the past. So before I even started my book journal, I actually kept a commonplace book without even realizing it. So I primarily used it for writing down like book quotes and things about TV shows or movies that I enjoyed. So I wanted to do a little bit of both as I did my reading journal. So I like to actually document more about the books themselves and information that I want to remember about the books. So in the future, if I ever want to come back and just kind of reminisce about the books that I've read, or if I want to remember certain information about that book, I can always go back and reference it in my book journal. So that's why I kind of call it my book journal rather than a reading journal. But I know that basically they're like the same thing, but just that's what I like to call it, and that's what I've like titled my journal, and so you can see that as well in my first video. So as I go through my book spreads, you'll see that I primarily document like 3 categories of information, and all of that information comes from how I annotate as I read. And so the first category that I annotate for is characters. In that category, I like to document anything about like what the characters look like, what their personality is like, things that have happened to them, anything that I need to remember about that character, and goes in my character description category. And then the next category is world rules. World rules kind of is a very broad category. It encompasses anything about that world that I want to remember. If it's more of like a fantasy book, you know, that could be like a magic system. It could be different creatures. It could be, you know, certain potions or spells, or it could also be like how the society operates, like anything about that world that I want to remember. It goes into my world rules category. And then the last thing is, the last category that I annotate for is favorite quotes. So that one's pretty self-explanatory. Any quote from the book that I want to remember goes in my favorite quotes. So that's the kind of information you'll see as I go through my book spreads. So yeah, let's go ahead and just get right into it. So before I flip to the very first book spread, I just want to preface by saying that if you have not read these books and you would like to read them without knowing any spoilers or knowing any information prior to reading them, I will leave timestamps down below so you can actually forward to the books spreads that you're interested in looking at. I'll try not to go into too much of a detailed description of all the books that I've made spreads for, just for the sake of time and just making sure that this video isn't super super long, but I just wanted to let you know that there might be some spoilery content in here if you do read any of my book spreads and the information that I've recorded. Especially since I've read some series last year, and so if you're planning on reading that series, obviously you'll see some information from all of the books, and so that could give away some information. So I just wanted to give you that warning before we go in to the very first spread. So without further ado, let's go ahead and flip to my very first book spread. So my very first book spread that I did was for the book Crescendo by Becca Fitzpatrick. This is the second book in the Hush Hush series. So I started reading Hush Hush in December of 2023. And after writing a lot of information down about that book, that got me into wanting to keep a reading journal for all of the other books that were in the series, and then also just for all the books that I was wanting to read in 2024 as well. I like to also decorate my book spreads kind of similar to the cover, and so all my book spreads I like to put an image of the book cover. I'll put the title and then also the author, and so that's kind of how I decorate my book spreads, kind of theme it after the cover, and then just different elements from the book itself. And so you can see here I've added some feather stamps, because this book series is about fallen angels. I've also drawn a Delphic amusement park sign, as well as having drawn this roller coaster here, which is the Archangel, as that is an important element, especially in the first book. But Delphic amusement park is a location that pops up a lot in the series, so that's why that is there. And then I have an 8-ball here because of Beau's Arcade, which is a place that one of the characters, Patch, likes to go to. And then I've also stamped the word angel down here because we all know that Patch likes to call Nora his angel, which is really ironic because he's the fallen angel and she's human. Well, there's more to that, but I won't go into too much more detail. If you've read the book, then you know. I like to usually start with my characters, and so I have here all the descriptions of the characters that I annotated for. And then on to the next page, I've done my world rules and my favorite quotes on this side. Again, I have another feather stamp here, and I also have drawn this here. This is not a letter V. It is the scar that is on Patch's back, because fallen angels are fallen because their wings have been taken from them. So this is like the scar on his back where his wings used to be. So that's what that is. And then moving on to the next one I have here, this is Silence. This is the second book in the Hush Hush series. So again, similar kind of what I did before. I've drawn also the ring that Hank Miller wears here. That's what that is. And not too much going on, so I have my characters here, world rules, favorite quotes, so I kind of all added that on just 2 pages. As you'll see as I go through my spreads, I've actually I feel like I've kind of evolved in how I've done book spreads. I think as I was starting out, I was kind of like getting a feel for what it's like to decorate these pages for the books that I read, and I feel like as I went on and I was getting really passionate about the books that I was reading, I did a little bit more. So I feel like I added a lot more information and a little bit more details and elements to my spreads as I go on. So you'll kind of see that. And then the next book I have here is Finale, which is the last book in the Hush Hush series. So again, I have my character profiles, world rules, favorite quotes. I have this spilled liquid here and here, and that is supposed to be Devilcraft, since that's a huge element in this book. So I've drawn that here. And yeah, so that's the Hush Hush series. Really enjoyed it. And then we'll go on to the next spread here. So we'll actually start on the left side, as it's just this one spread for this book. So the book over here is Who Made Me a Princess? This is a manhwa. This is a Korean graphic novel. I read it in English, but it is based off of a Korean webtoon that was turned into a graphic novel. This was really, really fun. I really liked the premise of this story. It was very, very unique, and the lady, well, who gets reincarnated as the princess is really funny, and I really like this quote where she says, "Chocolate, I cannot ignore my tenacious devotion to chocolate." It's super funny. I really, really enjoyed this book though. I have only read volume 1, but I would like to continue the series, so hopefully I will get to that at some point. But I did really like this story. I think it was really, really fun. And then moving on to The Cruel Prince. This was so fun and so wonderful. I won't talk too much about it, but I really, really love this series so much. And so this is the first book in the, I think they call it the Folk of the Air series. So the first book in this series by Holly Black is called The Cruel Prince. First part, obviously, again, is my characters. You'll see pictures of the characters. These are mostly all from Frostbite Studios. As I go through the different books in this this world, there are some different images from other artists as well, but a lot of them I did get from Frostbite Studios. So you will see a lot of images for the characters here. I also have this like ripped piece of paper that I created that is supposed to represent that note that Carden wrote Jude's name over and over and over again. So I made that and then stuck it here as that was significant to the book. And then, of course, more characters here. And even more characters. I really love the bomb, and I did put one little quote here just because I love that she says, "I like blowing things up." It's like, yes, I can see why you're called the bomb. But she's super fun. I love that. And then here are my world rules. This one I had a lot of world rules for because it was a high fantasy book and there's just so much to learn about the world. I did have a lot of notes and I did categorize them in 4 different categories because I just had so much information. And then this last page here is my quote page. And then I did draw Jude's sword here, and I don't know why I cannot remember what the sword's name is, but anyways, this is the sword that Jude's biological father made for her, so I drew that there. Oops. And then moving on here, we have The Wicked King, the second book in the Folk of the Air series by Holly Black. And so since this book takes place more with the undersea, I themed it more kind of like underwater themed. So again, I usually start off with my characters, so I have all my characters here. And then I have the Living Council, as they're more prominent in this book, so I did a little spread for them. I don't think at the time when I made this book, there might be some now, but when I made this book spread, I didn't find any really good fan art for Mikkel, Noir, or Randolin. So I used the Bing AI image generator to create these images. So that's what those are from. I do feel like these images do look like how I imagined them, so I am happy with how they turned out. And then again, more characters, and then my world rules. I like how I added like the bubbles as the bullet points. I think that was really fun. And then here is my favorite quotes. I think this is one of my favorites. I like the way that this looks a lot, and The Wicked King actually was my favorite book in this trilogy. I think just because you got to see more of Jude and Carden's relationship, and I just feel like there was a lot more that happened in this book, so that's why I really, really liked it a lot. And then moving right along here, this is the last book in the series, The Queen of Nothing. I didn't have a lot to write for this book, so there's not that much, but I did have still some character descriptions that I wanted to include. And then not a lot of world rules because we kind of learned a lot in the other 2 books, and then just 2 quotes. Obviously this one, super iconic. Everybody knows this quote. I really, really love that. The Queen of Nothing wasn't my favorite. I feel like I did like the first 2 books a lot more. This book was still good, but I do feel like whenever like an author like makes the premise of a story like something that could have been completely unavoidable, that just frustrates me so much. So I did enjoy the book. It was good. It was very well written, but I was super frustrated that like basically this whole book could have been avoided if there was just better communication. So but it's fine. And then on this side here, I have my spread for How the King of Elfhame Learned to Hate Stories. Again, this is also by Holly Black. This is a short, I guess you'd say it's a novella, a short story about Cardan's upbringing. I really liked this book a lot. I think it was like a fun little tale, and I really loved the illustrations in this book. They were so beautiful. I just really loved the artist who drew these images. Like, I just love the illustrations so much, and I love the little like fairy tale that's in the story as well. I think that's super fun. And then on this side here, I have Anna and the French Kiss. I actually don't read a lot of contemporary romance, but I had this book for a long time, and I was like, okay, I think I need to read it because I've had it for a long time. But I was actually traveling a lot when I wanted to read this book, so I ended up actually listening to it on audiobook. And when I started listening to it, I wasn't sure I was actually going to finish it because I wasn't sure I actually liked it, but I stuck with it, and I'm glad I did because I ended up really liking it a lot. I thought it was really, really cute. It was a really fun story, and so it was really good. I'm glad I ended up finishing it. I like that I did this gifts from St. Clair little spot right here because I think that was kind of fun, all the gifts that he gave Anna. So I printed those off. Also, this book is by Stephanie Perkins. I'm not sure if I'll read any more books by her, but that's okay. I did really like this book though. So here I have all of my character descriptions and then my favorite quotes. And I like that I got to do something a little bit more girly, so this is very like fun, like Valentine's, hearts, pink, because it is a romance, and I think it's really fun. And then moving right along here, this is my favorite book. I'm so excited to share with you guys about these spreads. You might have seen one of my shorts that I did. This was my favorite book of 2024, which is not surprising because it already was my favorite book. This was a reread for me because I wanted to annotate it and then also do book spreads for decorate book pages for it in my journal. So I did reread the whole series. I love this book so much. I think no one really knows it exists. I literally found out about it because I was thrifting one time like years ago, and I found this book, and I always like to read the first like page or page and a half of a book to see like if it sparks my interest, because I feel like a good author like draws you in at the very beginning. Like, I feel like I'm that kind of reader, like I need to be hooked like the first or second page. Like, if you're gonna wait till like page 10 or page 20 before you make me interested, like I feel like that's too long of a wait to be hooked. So I really love the way that the author Elizabeth Richards set up this book, and just the first kind of page, it just really hooked me. So I ended up buying the book and then read it and fell in love with it, and then found out there was 2 more books in the series, read those, fell in love. I love this book series so much. I've literally read this book like probably 7 or 8 times at this point. It's like one of those books I can just pick up and read anytime because I just love it so much. Yeah, I cannot rave more about the book, but to keep the video from being super long, I won't talk too much more about this book. But the images for this book series I did create again with the Bing AI image generator. So all the character profile pictures, I used that to create them. Since this is like a vampire book with other creatures too, I included some like puncture wounds up here. I did like a rose, kind of lots of roses. It does match the cover. So that's kind of like where that came from. And then more characters. I drew down here the Book of Creation as obviously the villain, the antagonist of the book series, Perrin Rose, is this, crazy man who came up with this weird cultic religion. So this is the book that he wrote, and so I drew a picture of that next to him. So that's what that is. And then again, more character descriptions. I drew anti-wrath spray. It's basically like dark, so in this book series, the vampires are called darklings, and then there's like this specific like virus that they can get that makes them basically turn very like feral and monstrous. And this is like a kind of like a aerosol that Dr. Craven invented that kind of like keeps them away. So I drew that. It's kind of funny. And then some more characters. And then I really love the way that these next few pages look a lot. So this is my world rules. And so for like my bullet points, I drew little drops of blood. My world rules. I drew more world rules. I also like how I had like this scrapbook paper that had like frames. So I cut out some of them and then wrote some of my world rules on there. I drew this picture here. This is of Shine, which is like a really cheap like alcohol that people drink in this world. So I drew that. I love the way that this page looks so much. So this is like the kind of lore that is described in the book of like how Darklings came to be. So this is the origin legend. This is probably like one of my favorite things that I've done. I don't know why, but like this moon, I feel like just turned out so good. I'm very happy with how that moon turned out. So yeah, so this is the Darkling origin legend spread. There are 9 like states in this world. So there's like the 9 United Century states. So this is all of the states in this world. And then the first book obviously takes place in Black City. And then there are 5 different districts in the city, and so I've drawn those as well. And then here is my favorite quotes page. I have a lot of favorite quotes because I love this book so much. And I'm also very happy with how these fangs turned out. So I drew like fangs with dripping blood again because there are Darklings, which are essentially vampires. So that's what that is for. And then moving right along, this is the second book in the series. It is called Phoenix. Really like the way that this one turned out as well. I drew this phoenix here and I really like the way that it turned out. It was a little bit difficult to draw. I'm not super good at drawing like animals, so I like the way that that turned out. I also like how I just put a picture of Ash here just because we love him. I didn't have anything else to add for him, but I was like, you know what? I think it would be a little bit weird if I wrote everybody else and then just left him out. So that's why he's there. We get another kind of species. There's like multiple species in this world. So one of the characters you learn a lot more about in this book is Elijah, and he is a bastet. So basically they're like cat people, like half cats, half human kind of people. And then there's also other species in this world that are basically werewolves. So you get a lot in this book series. You get werewolves, you get vampires, you get cat people. There's a whole bunch of stuff. It's very fun. More character descriptions. I've done like this like metallic scrapbook paper at the top. There's like a city that has all these solar panels on the top of their roofs, and so that's what this is supposed to be representing. And then there was like a specific like tavern that they were looking for called the Moon Star, and so that's why I drew this sign here. And then again, more characters here. Characters, this is supposed to be like the rebellion flag. You can kind of see it. It didn't turn out super well because like it's supposed to be a black rose that's burning on a blue, like cerulean blue flag. So you can't really see that it's a rose, but that's what that's supposed to be. And then I have my world rules here. Oh, so what I was trying to say earlier with the metallic pieces here that are supposed to represent these like solar panels that are on top of roofs, that is from a city called Thrace, which is nicknamed the Mirror City. Again, because of all of these solar panels on top of the roof. So that's why I tried to do that here, as that is a place that the characters visit in this book. And then moving on to the next spread here, this is my spread for Wings, which is the third and final book in the Black City series by Elizabeth Richards. This is really fun because I actually kept this like paper placemat I got from a restaurant, and I ended up using it for this book spread. So I think it's super fun because it ended up working out really perfectly, and I just used my markers to like color it in a little bit, but it looks like exactly how I envisioned like this scene from the book, which is like you're walking into this city called Amber Hills, and it's right behind a volcano, and I feel like it worked out really well. I just feel like it looked exactly how I envisioned it, so that was super fun. So I have some characters here. More characters. I have, I forget what they call these in the book. This is bad. But this is basically like a helicopter that they drive. They steal and ride around in. Asla is the one that pilots it, so that's why I put that there. And I put like a lily here because Polly was named after the Pollyanna lily, so I drew that. This also over here is the burial site for Marcel, where I've also put the dandelion and ashes lighter, as that's what they left behind. More character descriptions. And even more character description. And Medden, who is Prune Rose, gets a whole page because there's so much you learn about him in this third book. So there's all of that. And then again, I have my world rules. There was a lot of world rules. And then in the end, they have a new flag, which is like uniting all 4 species. And then my favorite quotes on this side over here. Moving right along, my next spread is on this side. It is for the book The Turnip Princess and Other Newly Discovered Fairy Tales. I don't know why, but I forgot to put the book cover image here, and then after I like finished decorating this, I realized it, and then I was like, well, I don't really want to put it there, and I don't think it really matches like the vibe of like how I decorated it, so I just left it off. So like this is the one that I just did not put the book cover for, but this was a book of like a collection of fairy tales from, I think, Bavaria. And I really love fairy tales. Like that's kind of like one of the things that I like nerd out about a lot. I really love like fairy tales and folklore, and I like reading different stories from all over the world. And so this was a book that I had for a little bit and hadn't read all of the stories. So I wanted to make sure I read that this year, this past year. So I included some of my top favorite tales from the book, and then just some archetypes that stuck out to me. And then the next book I have over here is The Moon Spinners by Mary Stewart. I was a little bit disappointed with this book because I had seen the movie that Disney made, and I thought that the book would be similar to the movie, but this book is completely different. Like there is just not much that is similar at all with the movie. And honestly, the book was a lot more slower than I was expecting. There was just not a lot that happened, so I was a little disappointed. It is an old book, and I think it's also kind of like a different, style of writing since it is older, but it just did not hit the way that I wanted it to. But I tried to draw basically what I envisioned as I was reading it. Like this is like where the hotel where Nicola was supposed to stay at, and then this was like supposed to be like the little hut that she finds Mark in. So that's what that's supposed to be. So I just included like very minor character descriptions because I just did not get into this book as much as I wish I did. And I included just one quote here, and then the book is called The Moon Spinners because like there's this legend of the moon spinners, and so I included that here as well. And then the next book I have here is Into a Wicked World by Jordan Riley Swan. I discovered this book in 2024. It was not on my TBR, but I discovered this book because I went to a book festival and I got to meet the author there, and that's where I purchased this book. This book is a retelling of The Wizard of Oz with kind of like a modernish twist. It's really, really wonderful. I really like this book a lot. I like the different things that he changed about this story. I love that it's Dorothy's houseboat that killed the Wicked Witch of the East instead of just a house. I also love that the witch's name is East. I think that's just really funny. Love this romance between her and the woodsman, who actually used to not be a woodsman but was cursed, and so that's why his skin is metal. Really, really loved this book a lot. I'm super excited. The author is coming out with 2 more books in like the same universe. Those are supposed to come out this year, so I'm really excited to read the other 2. The next one I'm more excited about. I feel like it just like the premise of the story sounds more interesting to me, and that one is like a romance between Glinda and the Wizard of Oz. So I'm really excited to read that book as well when it comes out. So I try to theme again this book spread based off of like the cover. So I've tried to draw on like the little flowers that are floating around, and then of course I have poppy flowers. Again, these images I created with the Bing AI image generator. So these are all my character descriptions. I just could not get a good picture of the scarecrow whose name is Straw, which is super fun. I love that. So this is my drawing of Straw. And I've drawn down here also Zolesha's black ebony wand. So Zolesha is the Wicked Witch of the West. I really liked the way that he like portrayed her and like kind of her backstory and how she became the Wicked Witch. I think that was really fun. And then I have the Wizard of Oz, and then Gaylette, who is the other good witch. The Wizard of Oz is so funny. I really love the way he's described in the book. He was not what you're expecting at all. It's really, really funny. I'm excited to see more about him in the next book. Over here I have my world rules. I've drawn some fighting trees, throwing apples. So I've used apples as like my bullet points here. I have the Yellow Brick Road. And then down here I've drawn some pink barley because pink barley is the staple crop in this universe. So I've drawn that down at the bottom. And then over here I have a completely different page to explain the summer and winter solstice, as this is a huge element of the story, and so I've taken up this whole spread to kind of describe what this is and why it's significant. Basically it has a lot to do with like when witches are their most powerful, and so I've included basically a description of how that all works. And then on this side I have here all of my favorite quotes. There was just so many really good quotes for this book, but one of my favorites I'll just point out. It says, "As for Dorothy, she couldn't understand why anyone wouldn't want to wear overalls. They had so many pockets, it was obscene." I just think that was so fun. I really, really liked that quote. I think that was funny. Moving on to the next book over here, I have The Host by Stephanie Meyer. This was by far the longest book I've ever read, so I'm really proud that I read like basically 600 pages because that was crazy for me. I actually really love the movie, and I've had the book for a long time and really wanted to read it, and I really loved it. I was really, really glad that I read it. There's definitely a lot more things that I could appreciate about the book, obviously that the movie didn't have, just again because there's always some things that the movie takes out. So first I have like all my character descriptions. Here I've drawn a Cheeto. This is not a very good drawing of a Cheeto, but that's supposed to be a Cheeto because Wanda really loves Cheetos, so I've drawn that there. This is like supposed to be like the cabin where Jared and Melanie and Jamie used to stay. I have a drawing of a water canteen, like that Jebediah used when he rescued Melanie and Wanda in the desert. And then over here I have world rules and then my favorite quotes. And so the theme for this setup was supposed to be like they're in the caves, and so like this is like the waterway that's in the caves. And so that's kind of like what the theme was for that. I actually have more quotes on the back page as well. And then this is actually like a copy of one of the pages in the book. It's towards the end. It's like one of the most memorable moments for me. I actually cried while reading this because it was so emotional. But this is also one of like the most memorable parts I feel like of the movie too. So I wanted to make sure I put that here because it's super meaningful. At least it was for me. I'm reading this, so I put that there. And then over here I have The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This is the first book in the duology that follows after the Cruel Prince series. So this takes place like 10 years in the future. I didn't like this duology as much as I liked the Cruel Prince, but that is totally okay. I still really enjoyed it, but I did feel like this book actually got off to a slow start, so I was a little bit disappointed with that, but I think it was also still fun to like see Oak and like learn more about Ren, so that was fun. And I do feel like the rest of the story was really enjoyable, except the ending, because the ending, like if you've read this book, like you know what the ending is like, and I feel like what Oak said at the very end like just haunted my nightmares for days on end. So I was a little bit upset about that, but it was a good book nonetheless. So first I have my character descriptions. I've kind of set it up kind of like autumn theme almost, because they're traveling through a forest and you know kind of going on this quest a lot. So that's kind of like the theme for this the spread for this book. I drew like a metallic fox trinket, as I used to play that game as when they were children. So I drew that there. And then I have some more character descriptions. I think the person who drew this fan art, I think this person is supposed to be Bogdana, but I thought that it looked a little bit more like Habitrot, so I put it for Habitrot. And then I drew the scissors that she stole. And then over here I have the two villains. And then I also have the very long story about how Surin was created. So I have that over here. And then I have my world rules and also the tale of Queen Mab, as you learn about her kind of origin story and how she got the power to create. So I included that whole story here. And it continues on the back because it's a very long story. And then I have my favorite quotes on this page. And then the last book that I have decorated in my journal for is The Prisoner's Throne, which is again the second book in the duology for The Stolen Heir. And so since this one starts off in the Ice Needle Citadel, I included it more like, or I created it more like a wintry theme and ice. So that's what was going on here. More character descriptions. And then I have my world rules and my quotes on this very last page here. So that is all of the books that not all the books that I have read in 2024, but all the books that I decorated pages for in my book journal. And it actually worked out great that I didn't complete my goal of 24 books because I only had like 3 pages left in my journal. So it actually ended up working out really well that I did not read anymore because I wouldn't have had any more pages to decorate any books for. So it ended up working out, but I'm super glad I did this book journal in 2024. It was a lot of fun, and I feel like as I was decorating the pages for each book that I read, it was kind of like me getting excited all over again, having read it. And so I think it's super fun also just to like look back and like read what I wrote and like get excited again all over again about that book, which is why I like having like done my book journal in a way where I'm like writing down information about the book so I can kind of revisit that and kind of feel like I'm experiencing the story again. But I'm really proud of how this journal turned out. I really love the way that everything got decorated, and yeah, I'm just really happy with how it turned out. So thank you guys again so much for watching and staying tuned for part 2 so that you could see me share all of my book spreads with you all. I'm also really excited to share with you guys my setup for my 2025 journal. I have so many books and I'm super excited to read, so I hope you stick around for that video to come. So please hit subscribe so that you don't miss that video, and also like this video as well if you enjoyed it. Please let me know if you read any of the books that were in my book journal. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about any of them. So thank you again so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!